Today I'm going to talk to you about grading and specifically setting up a transparent grading system. My background is in teaching high school English and theater and later adult ESL and ESL at college level. So I myself have experience with grading. I've gone through a lot of trials with grading, and I'm hoping to save you from some of those by what I'll cover today, okay? So today's learning outcomes are, I'm going to identify what a grade is and why it's important in context of the Academy of Art University, because that's the grading you're going to be doing for their students. And I'm also going to talk about how you can identify and communicate clear course outcomes and expectations to your students, and ways to utilize your syllabus, which is provided to you, and an efficient grading system along with a grading policy that you can share with your students. And I think that will help clear up a lot of frustration or heartbreak or confusion that comes up with grading issues as the semester goes on. So to start out, what is a grade? Yeah, very good. Okay, measures what you're learning. Anyone else? What's a grade mean to you?
How you're meeting expectations.
Good. How you're meeting expectations. What's it mean to students? Same? Anything you want to add?
It's almost like it's whether they're failing or they're being successful in the class they're learning from.
So failure or success?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
There's a certain element of level of focus.
Focus as far as where your focus has been in class, or?
Well, it just seems like that just the nature of work in general is the nature of work is you're being paid to focus.
Okay.
And when you're in class, of course, all our experiences, there are levels of focus where we're not very focused. Because even if somebody puts out excellent work, your focus can be horrible.
Okay.
And it can sort of detract from that.
So your amount and ability to focus. Okay, good point.
That also mean whether or not you're moving on, moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in this failure success area.
Focus. Kind of a feedback loop for the instructor to know if you're getting concepts across, or they understand.
Good. Yeah, it's also a feedback loop. Yeah, for the instructor and the student too. Yeah. Good.
For the students, it can also mean loss of financial aid or getting kicked out of the country in some cases, a certain grade, right?
Yeah, it can have
Leads to that failure success.
financial implications and visa. Okay, well, great. I'm going to highlight a few things, which a lot of these are already said. So again, as someone said, measures what you are learning and if you're meeting the expectations. So, okay, and in regards to the indicator, it's also an important part of the assessment of student work, and that helps play into that feedback loop too. The student gets to also find out how they're doing. And then with Academy of Art, of course, we use letter grades. So A and B are exceeded. They did more than just meet the expectations of the class and gain the skills to move forward. A C means that they can move forward and they did what they were supposed to do. And then a D and F is that they did not meet and they would have to try again to be able to gain those skills to be able to move forward. They weren't successful. And then, as Natasha brought up, a grade is important at Academy of Art and to students for a few reasons. So when it comes to grading at Academy of Art during the fall and spring, you submit 4 grades. There's 2 progress grades and there's a midterm and final grade. So if you've had experience with that. So the progress grades are kind of a feedback loop. Like it tells the students how they're doing and check-in points. But for progress grades in midterm, they don't go on a student's final transcript, so in case you're wondering, and students oftentimes ask that. But the final grade does. And something my colleagues brought up to me when I was preparing this presentation is that progress grades and midterm grades, sometimes we feel like we're motivating the students by giving them a higher grade than they actually deserve early on in the semester to, yeah, you can do it. You know, you have a B so far, let's keep it up. But if they aren't keeping it up or they actually drop below that, it's difficult to give them a lower grade at the end when they haven't met those expectations. So just a faculty development tip. Try to be very accurate with what you're giving for grades for progress and midterm also, or even don't overdo it. You know, if anything, underdo it so that they have something to build up and work harder for. Does that make sense? Any questions about that? Okay. And then, as Natasha mentioned, final grades do determine whether students get to move forward. If they don't pass a class and it's required, they have to pay for the class again to retake it. So that plays into the finances, along with they could lose scholarship and financial aid. International students, if their grades aren't kept at a certain level, they could go home for it. So for students, it's really important, and that causes sometimes a lot of frustration and conflict in the classroom between teacher and students if they don't understand or agree to the grades they're receiving. So those are the things I'm going to talk to you about today to minimize. All right, so in order to do that, I am going to put you through a little activity. So for the activity, I'm going to have you take a quiz. I'm going to give you 2 minutes for the quiz. Don't stress. I am going to give you a grade on it, but I won't go on your transcript, okay? So again, I'm giving you 2 minutes for this. Okay, so time's up. All right, so I'm going to assign a few grades to the students in the class. So Natasha got an F, and what's your name? I'm sorry.
Monica?
Monica, you received a C, and Sam, you received a D.
For a talent family? Yeah.
Well, and both of you received A's. Okay? All right, so just anyone, can you tell me why the people in the class received the grades they received? Any idea? Any guess?
Did the other men in the class get D's?
So maybe it was a gender bias?
It must have been my cell phone.
Could have been the cell phone.
I drank water during the
Drink water, gender bias, cell phone. Anything else?
Well, since you didn't grade the test, yeah, it's hard to tell. You gave us a test, actually.
But I didn't actually
But
see
you
what
didn't.
you wrote.
Yeah.
That's a very good point. Okay.
Your psychic abilities well known.
So I want you to experience what it feels like to be a student without a teacher telling you what your test is really for, setting up the expectations of the test, okay? All right, so all your guesses were excellent guesses, but that's all they are, guesses, right? Because you can't read my mind. You don't know what I was looking for. And for those of you who got your grades, how did you feel? How do you feel about getting a D?
Ooh, I didn't like it.
Yeah, it didn't seem like you did. You thought it was maybe a gender bias. Okay.
I felt vindicated
I was
when you got it,
reaching.
though. I'm like, oh, yeah.
You felt good that you
I think tattletale was, like, that would get me a D. I think that's a good.
Okay. And then did you have any feeling about getting
it
a C?
a great feeling, yeah.
It wasn't a great feeling. Okay. And what about the A's in the room?
I could do that again.
I felt really good about it, but I feel like my test results actually would have reflected that grade.
Okay.
I was
Okay.
also confused. I didn't know what I did
She
right.
must like my hearing.
Yeah.
Okay. That was part of it. No,
I
so
thought you guys got
Big
A's because of your
jewelry?
hair.
Yeah.
so confusion,
Yeah.
maybe you don't feel good, maybe you feel great, but you have no idea why. Okay. So these are things that students feel in the class, maybe sometimes more frequently than not, depending on how we're setting up these assignments. So I'm going to talk about what we can do to kind of minimize these feelings. But let's say that I showed you these tools before you took your quiz today, all right? So Sam pointed out that, yes, I did not actually look and see what your answers were to your quiz. So this class was actually a college and study skills preparation class. So I did not care about what the content was. I cared about how you took your quiz and your ability to take the quiz. So for the learning outcomes of this class, we would have been talking about sitting silently during a quiz, bringing appropriate materials, which it looked like everyone had, not cheating, and sitting closely to me so you can hear me, and also completing the questions in the allotted time. All right, and then I also could have provided you an assignment sheet which says the similar information. And another tool I could have used is the rubric. So let's just use the rubric to kind of determine how I gave the grades. So brought your own writing utensil, sat not in the very front but towards the front. You didn't speak to anyone, and you weren't cheating. And you finished in the time, so I gave you A's, okay? And then if you didn't have a writing utensil, or you sat towards the back of the room, or you made noises while talking to other people, you did not complete the quiz. So some people either fell in here or kind of in the middle. But this is another way that you can kind of feel justified and rationalized for the grade you received. So if I'd given any of you any of these tools before you take the quiz, do you think if you had come to class and paid attention, that you probably could have got close to a grade you wanted? Likely?
Yeah.
Unless you
Do better than A.
You can't do better than A. That's true. Okay. So I'm going to go over some of these tools with you. All right. So to quiz question number 1, if a student has any questions about their grade, I can easily explain it by referencing details in the student's work. So for this example where you just took the simulated quiz, referencing different areas of the course expectations, the assignment sheet, and the rubric, all those ways I could actually talk to you about the details of your grade, okay? So these are some of the tools you want to be implementing, and we'll review these. All right, so that leads us to quiz question number 2. The course syllabus reflects how I grade my students. So Academy Art provides a course syllabus for every class here, whether it's online or on-site, and the outline can be in different stages. But as far as the syllabus, who has their syllabus for class for fall? Some people don't.
I do, but it's thin.
It's thin.
It's thin. I'm like, what am I doing? I know what I'll do. I'll teach them.
No.
But in terms of from a rubric standpoint,
Yeah.
it's a tough one.
Okay, good. So I'm going to point out 2 things which I hope are on there. I feel like 99% confident they're on there. But what are, for, most people have their syllabus. What is it that you look for on your syllabus? Do you just look for, what are you looking for on your syllabus? Do you use it at all? Do you take notes on it?
Out, so
No.
I'm
No worries.
figuring it out.
Okay, no worries. Is there anything you use your syllabus for? If not, that's okay. I'm going to point some things out to you, but if you are, I'd like to.
Well, so originally I got from, the syllabus was a lot of talk about this, talk about that, talk about the other thing, make this happen, make that happen, but it was originally from an online class, and a bunch of it just did not make sense to me at all.
Okay.
And I felt like they threw me the football and said run, and I knew a lot about the subject matter, so I sort of knew what I was, practical things I could do that would give them skill sets that would make them succeed
Good.
further on initially. And I've been teaching the class for a number of years, and I've sort of given in to the reality that there are some good things in the online class, and I'm using that as reading material, and then I'm going to key off it. So I don't like that. So my
You don't like your
reaction to the
syllabus?
syllabus is I don't like it.
Okay.
And it seems like it's a throwback to a lecture class instead of active learning, and a bunch of other things like that irritate me, so I get mad. And then I'm not very cooperative.
Okay.
But
That's okay.
But I'm trying to sort of turn it around and make sure that I deliver to the students all the things that are on it.
Okay.
Well,
hopefully I'll show you some syllabus magic in a
okay,
moment.
syllabus.
Maybe it'll feel different. Yeah. Anybody else before I show you the magic trick? No.
No, you go.
I was just saying, I look for major assignments so I can make
Major
sure.
assignments.
Mhm.
And sometimes or sometimes not, they're on there, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
I won't be
you
showing
can
you
do that.
They're on
that.
there. Yeah, they're on there.
They're
Fine. So- Oh, that's weird.
Nothing, I was just being awkward.
You're just being awkward. Okay, good. That's okay too. All right. So the first thing that I feel is syllabus magic. That's very helpful to you and can be helpful is looking at the course learning outcomes, which I know for sure on every syllabus. Okay. So the course learning outcomes are what your department has decided is important for your students to know when they leave your class. And that could be just successful to get their degree, or maybe they're things that they have to know in order to go into the next class if they're in levels, if it's a prerequisite course. So I'm sorry you can't take this class. It's a made-up class by Natasha, tap dancing.
Okay.
But for these course learning outcomes, I'm not going to go through all of them, but just for an example of how you can rely on these and use these to help with your teaching and also with explaining grades to students, I'm going to demonstrate. So for the first one, describe the evolution of tap dancing. So if there's assignments filled out in your outline, it's possible one already refers to this. But let's say you don't have assignments, or it's limited in your outline. So describing the evolution of tap dancing, maybe you'll create the assignment that they have to write a research paper where they research the evolution of tap dancing. And then what you're grading for in that paper is what?
That they understand it and can execute that paper.
Yeah, their ability and to what degree they can describe the evolution of tap dancing. So this kind of gives you a way to assess your students that they're understanding the materials in your class. And this also tells you what it is you're supposed to be teaching in your class, even if your outline is not what you're hoping it would be, okay? And then just for one more, compare styles of important tap dancers. So maybe your next assignment is that you have students do an oral presentation for the class on 2 different tap dancers and comparing their styles. So again, you're going to be testing their ability to do this and to what degree. And again, you can come back to this if students ask, well, why did I get this grade? Well, because you couldn't do this, or you couldn't do that, or you did this really well, okay? Any questions about this piece of magic?
Who wrote that class name?
You're sitting next to her.
That's great. Well, did you tap before?
I do, but I've never actually taught that class.
Oh, I used to tap. That's good.
Oh, we gotta get into
You got to talk. You know?
Future class
Look
coming up.
out.
All right, so the other, so there's only two,
Wait a minute,
yes,
I'm sorry.
please.
On that thing, it didn't have what you want students to know. Is there a reason for that?
You know,
Students
Right,
Sam,
know.
well-
that used to be that used to be a category on the syllabi the academy will be familiar with or will know. It's not there anymore. We took it out. They took it out.
So it's now should do.
It's all will be able to. And so no is a word that shouldn't actually show up here because it's just too vague. So.
And if you need help finding your most recent outline and syllabus, I will email it to you if you let me know. Okay? Okay, good. All right, so the second piece of magic is the grading breakdown on your syllabus. Again, the department determined this, so this is kind of like a contract with the student. So not only are you supposed to be teaching them the skills of the course learning outcomes, but this is how you're supposed to be grading them. It's not optional. So this is very important because this is going to help you determine what you're grading your students on and how you're grading them if it's not spelled out, okay?
Okay, can I ask?
Please, yes.
All right, so I understood that originally the book, which the course catalog that had the description in it, that description was actually a legal contract with the students. That if we didn't provide what that description said, that could be a cause of action, that they could sue the academy based upon that.
Class description?
The class description that was in that. And I've never heard this. So, are you sure? This is gonna change my life.
I feel sure. Natasha, can you speak?
I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
we're
people
sure.
can sue over anything they want to sue, but the syllabus is officially your contract. Really, with the syllabus.
Okay, so 40% projects.
This
And
is
that's
again.
different from assignments? How's that different from assignments? that sounds like that's the interpretation. I could make something a project to go visit Natasha and, I don't know your name, sir.
Mark.
Tap dancing class. Yeah, okay. Okay, participation in critique. Okay.
Do you want me to go
Assignments.
through each?
What?
Do you want me to go through each?
No, it's
Oh,
not.
okay.
I mean, I'll guess the rest, but, yeah.
What about for more art courses where you're not gonna really have quizzes? Like, the whole outline for the course I'm supposed to be teaching, there's no quizzes in it.
And on your syllabus, does it have a weighted percentage for quizzes?
I'm not sure, so this is just an example.
You're just wondering if you found yourself in that situation.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so you could make up quizzes, and you could also talk to your department about maybe possibly the situation and whether they already have quizzes that they've made up for the class, and that's why that's built into there. And maybe something would change, and if not, and you still have to develop quizzes for it, and you don't know how, that's fine. Come talk to faculty development. That's what we're here for. We'll help you do that, okay?
What about tests? Quizzes are not the same thing as a midterm test.
That's
or a final
true.
test if you have those.
I think this is just an example.
It is an example.
Okay.
And for tap dancing. But if you find that there's something strange on your syllabus and you do have questions about it, call faculty development, please. That's why we put this on too, so you know who we are and you come to us.
Were you going to speak about using Easy Grade Pro as a way to break down the percentages?
Wonderful, I
like that
will.
program. It's
Yeah.
great once you get it down.
Excellent. Okay, and a plug for Easy Grade Pro. Yeah, so I'll go into that. Thank you. Yes, good point. Okay, so what you're seeing here is called a weighted grading system. And I'm just going to point out there are some advantages and disadvantages, okay? So advantages are that distinct categories are weighted. And it's very true, as Sam pointed out. You need to be clear in your mind what those categories mean and what falls into those categories. And again, please, if you have questions about it, contact us. And you don't have to worry about exact points for assignments, and that's wonderful. When I taught high school theater for the first time, I developed hundreds of assignments and little tests and projects for my students, and by the end of the semester, I could not track my own point system. And I'm embarrassed, but it was, it's my first semester. So I ended up having to pass everyone because there was no way I could explain to them why they got the grades they received, because my point system was too elaborate for even myself. All right? So make it easy on yourself. And if you have issues like me, keep it to 10 points or 100 points for every assignment. But because they're fed into that weighted category, it makes it easier to determine that grade for each category.
Okay, wait a minute. I didn't
Yes.
understand the last thing you said. What, make it 10 points because what?
So when whatever you're having, projects, assignments, quizzes, make everything 10 or 100 points. So when you're trying to do the percentage math,
Oh, that's easy. Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
well, to me it's easy. Okay. And if one of the courses is more vital for skill development, students are going to see that within the weighted percentages. So on the last slide, projects and assignments are more, and students should probably invest more time into those than the quizzes, for example. Okay, and a disadvantage is that if you like to give extra credit, and we'll talk about that too today, you cannot, it's not built into your syllabus as a weighted category. So we'll talk about some ways around that. And then lastly, if you're math handicapped like myself, it might be difficult for students to understand how it's being graded. And yes, something else, if you have time before your semester actually starts, go through and for the outlines that have assignments, assign grade point systems to those. If not, figure out what your assignments will be and assign point systems so that it's easy for you when those things come up. All right, so that leads us to your quiz question number 3. My expectations for student assignments are in writing. All right, so you may go back today and look at your outline for your class and find that there's some assignments written in there, which is great. And if there are, and if things are unclear to you, adapt them, revise them for your students, because they need to be clear for you for them to be able to be clear for your students, right? But if there are no assignments, you're going to have to create them yourself. And I think it is worth the time of writing down some information, which I'll go over in a moment, okay? Or your department, there's people who've been working there a long time. Talk to some of your colleagues and see if anyone's taught the class and has written up assignment sheets for it. Or lastly, talk to faculty development, okay? So a sample assignment sheet, make sure at the very least you have a due date, the purpose, which can relate back to your course learning outcome. So for example, if this was a research paper, the purpose is to find out their ability to describe the evolution of tap dancing. And then describe it with detailed instructions. And then to make sure that people are as successful as they possibly can be, tell them what tools to use and exactly how you want it submitted to you, okay? So the more explicit you are, the higher chance that they'll give you what you're asking for. Okay, so that's just one tool, the assignment sheet. The next tool is the rubric. So some of your courses may have a rubric built into it. If it does, wonderful, please use it. If you don't know how to use it, that's okay. Call faculty development. We'll tell you how to use it with your students. But essentially, you can give it to them before an assignment if you'd like, so they can see what details. So here are different criteria that you're looking for, major categories in the assignment. And then under each category are the details, and these details are to what ability they can do this criteria. So either they do it really well, or they do it, sufficiently, or they're missing a lot, or they're not doing it well, okay? And then you can also use this to grade their work, and this very specifically points out to the students where their gaps are and where they're doing really well, okay? It's not expected that you'll have all these things for all your classes right away. So over time, as you teach, you'll develop these with help of faculty development. And if they're already in your courses, please use them, okay? And then something to point out are the breakdown of grades. So for Academy of Arts, sometimes you might be wondering, what grade do I give this essay versus this other one? You know, the criteria need to be clear in your mind, the differences between them. But for Academy of Art, a C is if they have basic familiarity with the skills in general classes. Later, maybe as a graduate student towards their final classes, they'll have mastered the skills to some degree. B and A mean that the skills go beyond this, but they have enough skills to move on to the next class. And then D and F, they're not ready to move on. You're not helping them by pushing them forward. They need to retake it so that they can gain those skills. And some faculty development tips from some of my colleagues. They said, talk to your department and colleagues about their norming for grades. Your colleagues might have very clear guidelines, the way they think of their own professional environment of how they assign grades. So for example, some people have said, oh, this means you would hire the student. But that really depends on your department and also what level they are in their classes. And then be true to yourself. You know, you're a good gauge. You've gone through school, okay? You know what makes sense. And then be strict but fair. And I think being strict and fair means that you do have clear criteria and expectations to fall back on if students want to understand why they got the grade they received, if they have confusion about that. All right, and then for the plug in the back, Easy Grade Pro. So this would have helped me a lot probably when I was teaching that high school theater class. Academy of Art University offers you the software Easy Grade Pro. So if you don't already have a system you use to track grades, or if you're looking for a new system, you can revert to this one. There's 2 people at faculty development who will help you actually set it up and get your class roster in there and the weighted percentages set up. And then this does the math for you. And then you can also do printouts to show students where they are with assignments and whatnot too as questions come up.
Just one question. How does that relate to, and I know there are the different categories, of course, sorry.
That's okay.
Project, participation, retreat, assignments, and quizzes. Quizzes are like online, and so I would imagine there's some information that's just kicked out, and then do we take that information and plug it in there from those online quizzes?
You mean like tracking the students' grades on the quizzes?
Yeah.
I don't think there's a system that the LMS where they're taking the quizzes will be read by Easy Grade Pro. I think you have to,
We take it by hand.
Yeah.
yeah.
It is, okay.
So
But-
in the LMS, there's an area a tab you can click on to see what they're, and then, yeah, then you'd have to enter it.
Okay, all right, great, thanks.
Yeah.
So who do we contact to get, in a way, trained to use this program?
Excellent question. So I have the information on who to contact and how to contact them on the resource pack. Yeah. Good. Anything else on Easy Grade Pro? Is anyone, you're using it, correct?
Mhm.
And are you?
It's been great.
It's been great?
It's been great, as long as you understand how it works. You get stuck in some dark corners in that program.
Yeah.
If you're not familiar, so you have to make sure you understand how it works and how it doesn't, you have to back it up. It backs up automatically, but I like to make sure I date my files. I go a little bit out of the way to make sure I have the right updated version.
Just, yeah.
Things that I just do for myself as somebody who likes to organize my files appropriately.
Okay.
But understanding how to do quizzes, for instance, and add a category for quizzes and give it the amount of points that reflects that project. How many questions are in the quiz, for instance, I might just make a category for my weekly 8 quiz, thing I put out. It's part of the grade picture, the grade picture. I add that in there.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, major assignments, midterms, attendance, all that. You can load it in, and it adds it up nicely. It's great.
Okay. Wonderful.
But it's got tricks to it.
Okay.
Careful. It can be very frustrating at first, and how to work that program.
Okay.
But ask Tony or Scott,
Yeah.
sit down and help you out.
Yeah, and I have their contact information on this page. Thank you. Okay, so that takes us to quiz question number 4. Students can refer to my grading policy when they are unclear. So I think a grading policy, or at least ideas of a grading policy, are really important. The Academy of Art University Student Handbook Manual has, attendance and tardiness, policies written in there. But they're a little bit loose. Some things even say, like, up to your instructor or the department. So you can read through those and decide if, how you want to use them or adapt them. But I'm going to go over a few of those. And the reason I think they're really important is before I moved to faculty development, I used to be a graduate academic advisor here at Academy of Art. So I had students calling and emailing and crying a lot about not understanding grades for certain reasons or certain problems they were going through. So I actually pulled some of their emails to use as case studies with you today. So you can read what they're upset about, and then maybe you can think of how this would apply to a grading policy and how you might implement that in your own class. So let's see. Let's do groups of 3. I think that leaves one person left over who can join, so a group of 4. So I'm going to pass out the case studies to you. And what I'm going to have you do is, in your group, read the case study and read the questions. And I'm going to give you about 10 minutes to answer each question and think through it. And I'll walk around and help you, and then we'll debrief together so you can figure out how this plays overall into a grading policy. Okay? All right. Do you need me to help you make groups, or you're okay? Okay. That's okay. No worries.
Bring us a table.
So the teacher isn't providing enough feedback to the student.
Or the expectations. I guess other class, they can set out at the beginning, you'll get,
It'd be nicer and also remind the student, but
Uh,
still the
progress
student's responsibility whether they're reminded or not.
or if they have an issue with a specific grade in the class. I guess this is different, she's not receiving any grades, so.
Usually because they, someone's short-sighted happened along the way. I'm not sure if it's true or not.
Okay. All right, so I apologize for interrupting, but we're going to come back together because all of you had different case studies that looked at different areas, which would be developed into a grading policy, essentially. So case study 1, this group here, I'm giving you 2 minutes. So basically their case study was on tardiness and absences. So from what I know, I've only missed class last week, and I do not understand why I was marked unattended for the 27th, 31st, and 21st. Also, I might be late sometimes, but I've never been late for more than 15 minutes, and I believe there's many other students that are more often than I am. I often approach the teacher for questions and was never told about not attending classes. I believe there might be a misunderstanding because I definitely only missed class once, which is the 14th of April, and I took the time to email her my work on that particular week. So for case study 1, what was the problem? One sentence.
Punctuality, a lack of punctuality and tardiness.
Okay. And then what could the teacher do to resolve this problem?
In the beginning, of course, make sure they go over when they will be marking people as attending course, and what to do if you're late. Come approach the teacher at a later time to express that you came in late, so that way you can make sure you're marked in.
Good. And what can you do for your own class to make sure that these problems don't arise?
We mentioned if you do notice a student who has been missing multiple weeks in a row, go talk to them and ask if there has been any problem, and notice that they haven't been there, so that way it gives them a chance to tell you whether or not they have been absent or if they've been late, and you can resolve that issue before it becomes a big problem.
Good. So have a clear policy on it, and then just have open discussion with your students, checking in on these type of things. Okay, excellent. All right, case study 2. So case study 2 was here. Excellent. All right, so theirs was on late assignments. So I'm not sure if it's even worth emailing you, but I wanted to let you know that I've had for the past 3 weeks, an illness, sorry, and haven't been able to really do much work. Now that I'm feeling better, I'm totally stressing out, and I've been emailing both of my professors throughout the past 3 weeks to keep them updated on my progress. Neither one of them have responded to my emails, but I did email them each a final time today to find out where I stand and what I need to do to get up to speed. It's been a rough couple of weeks, and I haven't been able to go to work all that much either. I'm not really asking that you do anything, more just that you're aware of my condition. I hope I'm not too far behind in my work, and I'll still be able to pass the semester. I have documentation for the illness from my doctor if that's needed. So excused absences you do have to accept excused absences of doctor's notes and things. So when situations like this come up, you do have to consider how you're going to handle them. So case study number 2, what did you guys see as the problem?
Well, the problem is that you have nothing to grade. I mean,
The teacher has nothing to grade.
right.
Okay. And then what could the teacher do to turn this situation around at this point?
Well, we could, first of all, like open communication. So have more constant contact with your students.
Okay.
You have a policy in place that you will respond back to any inquiries they might make in a certain amount of time.
Okay.
And that seems to be mostly what this student's issue was lack of communication.
Nobody's telling them what to do, yeah.
And then also a lot of preventing the problem, and what I would do in my class or our class is having policies in place for what to do about late work ahead of time, and again, having more open communication. Having a policy or a strategy for the students who do miss class, how they can come up to speed on their own by talking to other students rather than you having to teach the course all over again to
That's an important
3
point,
students
too.
you may have in class who are missing. So
Yeah.
have them take the responsibility themselves to figure out what they missed and get caught up.
Good. So again, having clear expectations in the beginning, which I recommend having in a policy, but we'll cover that again. And then, yeah, same as you guys said, constant feedback and communication with your students about things going on. And then case study 3, in the back corner, yours was on resubmit, so resubmitted work. So there were some occasions when I was told my grade would be changed if I followed her instruction, and the grade book does not reflect that change. Also, after the midterm grade, there was a list of assignments she said I didn't do. One of the assignments listed 5 of them I had done already and submitted to the late folder, and I'm not sure why she didn't know that. This is when I emailed her again on the July 25th. This email was asking the instructor when my grades from the late folder would be updated to that grade tab. She did not answer my question, and instead referred me to do something else. This was her response. As I've told you throughout the class, late assignments need to be turned in one at a time in the late homework folder. That is the only way I can update your grades. At this point, there's nothing I can do. So in the back, what did you guys see as, this seems like it has a few problems, but what did you determine were a problem or problems?
The problem is there's unclear policy on, like, she was not clear on how to resubmit the late homework. It seems like her impression is she just turned in everything all in one folder, but the instructor is saying, well, one at a time, one in each folder. So we think that the teacher could have clarified the resubmission policy at the very beginning, so that everyone has an expectation of how it's being graded, and then constantly reminding them kind of maybe every few weeks how that policy works out, so that they get, reminded and how to submit it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we thought that the instructor could have graded the assignment in a more timely manner and responded a little sooner, so that the student doesn't get too worked up on, well, I didn't get a response, so what's going on?
That's a really good point also, and we'll get into that too. Okay, good. So again, it seems like expectations, clear expectations, and communicating those. And then last one, case study 4, theirs was on feedback. I don't really have a good handle on how my grades are because I only received one assignment grade in one of my 2 classes. I asked a friend in a class that I'd taken last year if she was getting weekly grades in an effort to see if it was just my classes or if this was a new policy. She said she was not receiving weekly assignment grades as I had in the past. So for you guys, what's the problem?
Well, I want to make sure that there's no stone unturned and just cut to the chase and make sure that student gets a response instantly. You can clear it up as fast as possible, regardless
of what the problem is.
Where the problem stemmed from. Just make sure you have the information for the student.
Okay, so instant, well, maybe not instant, that's not realistic, but as quick as possible, communication and feedback. Yeah.
And to avoid the problem would be, setting up expectations at the beginning, transparency with grading, do they get weekly grades or not? Is it 3 grades a semester, etc.?
When they can expect to get their grades. Okay, good. All right, so thank you. So this kind of goes into what I suggest you might at least have clear in your mind if you don't write it down and to provide students, but some considerations for a grading policy. So the first one, attendance and tardiness. Again, there is a policy in the handbook. Excused absences you do have to accept, and you have to accept their work.
Wait a minute, how many, does it say, how many, does the school have a policy on how many classes the student can miss before it's too hard for them to come back? Or is that just based on what we think we can teach them and what they can catch up with?
So this is where you need to clarify for yourself how you want to do it. In the handbook, it says 3 absences if you miss 3 weeks in a row or 3 modules in a row, that you actually are supposed to be dropped from the class if they're unexcused, okay? And in online classes, you'll see that and I would have students call me, why am I not in my class? Well, did you miss 3 weeks in a row? Yes, okay, that's why. On site, I know it's treated a bit different because you can't just drop them from the room. So the Academy has policies like this in there. However, it really seems from being an academic advisor that each department treats it differently. So the first thing to do is talk to your department director or AA and find out how they treat the attendance and tardiness policy. And then if they don't have one, go to the manual and decide how you are going to use that policy with your students. And if you still are just unsure, again, I'm sorry to keep saying this, call faculty development and we'll help you devise something that works for you and works for your class. The second part is determine if and how you will accept late assignments and how they'll factor into a grade. So again, you do have to accept late work from students with excused absences, but you need to decide how long do they have to submit that late work? Do they get a week? Do they get 2 weeks? How are you going to treat that? And the group in the corner brought up your own time. When are you going to have time to actually grade that and give them a grade? So again, it's possible your department has a policy on how long you get to return late work and the grades. But the other thing you need to decide, are you going to accept late work from people who have an unexcused absence? Okay? These are things you have to have clear because you have to be consistent with all the students, because of course that would also cause problems. And that kind of goes into number 3. So especially at an art school, you give a lot of critiques and a lot of feedback, and students are constantly reworking their projects and developing them. So again, think about your own time. Do you have time to take redone work and grade it? And again, it's possible your department has a policy on this. They may make you do it, and there's some terms for that. But if not, you need to decide for yourself, can you do that, and what's realistic for you? What will be the turnaround time? How will that affect their grade? How will that bump up their grade, okay? Or how many extra points would they get for that? And then lastly, which I heard from everybody, provide frequent feedback in different forms. So whether it's an email when they email you, maybe you work best, you'd like to just call them from home, and that's the way you like to handle things. Or you want them to come in and talk to you, or talk to you before class or after class. Set up these times for the frequent feedback they need so that they don't end up confused or frustrated or upset. Okay, so we're almost to the time. So this goes back to quiz question number 5. So on your quiz, I asked you, what's a concern or question you have about grading? If you feel like your concern or question was answered in this session, please give me a thumbs up. Okay, great. If it wasn't answered, that's fine. Maybe not fine for you, but give me a thumbs down if it wasn't answered. And if it wasn't, please give me your quiz with your question or concern on it with your email, and I will address it and respond to you, okay? Next week. I'm going to give you a time. Next week. By the end of next Friday, I will. I have more presentations tomorrow on Friday. All right. And then lastly, as these things come up, because you can't always predict problems or things that may come up, or you may have problems creating these policies, call us. We're in faculty development Monday through Friday, 8 to 6. So there's going to be someone there to help you, okay? And our contact information is on the handout I'm going to give you, along with each of the different tools I talked about and things I separated with links for the resources to where you can find more information and how to create your own. So takeaways today, I hope that you can identify the student outcomes of your course. I hope that you'll communicate those expectations to your students. That's going to help clear up a lot of problems. And decide on explicit grading policies so you can avoid unnecessary back and forth over small things like attendance and whatnot.